Hello, everyone. My name is Scot McKnight. I'm a professor of New Testament at Northern Seminary, and I have the privilege today of interviewing a friend uh, and also a partner in a conversation on the gospel. His name is Matthew Bates, and he is a professor at Quincy University. And Matt has a new book on the gospel, which might be confused with another book or two of his on the gospel, but it is not the same. It is a new book called Why the Gospel: Living the Good News of King Jesus with Purpose. And I was privileged to write the foreword to it. And this is a genuinely different book than what Matt has written before, as it continues to drill down and to expand and clarify in very accessible prose his understanding of the gospel. So, Matt, I would like you to share a little bit about who you are, um, what you do when you're not writing books or being interviewed on podcasts, and something you enjoy doing for fun other than cheer for the wrong team in baseball.
Oh, Scott. Hey, thanks so much. And yeah, obviously, I consider you both a partner in this work, but also someone who's blazed the trail with your King Jesus gospel. Obviously, a lot of us are doing work to further that, and it's a great privilege to have you write the forward. A little bit about myself. Yeah, professor of theology at Quincy University. When I'm not busy handing out exams and grading papers, you can find me on a hiking trail as I'm off and out, and I've managed to convince my kids that's fun. If you need the secret trick for how to do that, it's that my wife makes homemade cookies and that we take them on the hike. That's the trick. And so we do some hiking around the Illinois area. And we're a river town, so we get to enjoy river life in Quincy, Illinois. And beyond a huge baseball fandom, which I do root Giants, Scott has traditionally rooted Cubs, but his son is involved in, is it scouting or just organizational leadership? I don't remember.
Yeah, he's the senior scout for the Cleveland Guardians, the former Cleveland
Yeah,
Indians.
so
Yeah.
Scott has jumped over to the Guardians now for his primary baseball allegiance, which, his allegiance is to King Jesus first, I guess Guardians second, Cubs third. And anyway, I also, what else do I do? I like to smoke meat. I've gotten into that recently because we got a Traeger for Christmas, and so we've been smoking stuff like crazy and eating it. And that's awesome. And I've gotten a little into jogging the last couple of years, which is painful but beneficial. So I actually kind of enjoy it in that sick sort of way. So I've been doing a bit of that.
Well, that's interesting about smoking meat. I'm glad to hear you're doing that. I would like. I have a smoker, but my dear wife is
Oh,
not a fan of beef,
oh,
and I and I like to
brisket.
smoke
Come
beef.
on,
Oh, I know. I
get her
love to
some
do it. But
brisket.
she goes, "No, we're not. We don't need to eat that." So, well, okay, Matt, why did you write this book, and who's it for, and sort of what's your hope for readers?
Well, let's start with who it's for. This is a book that's written for a general Christian audience, so hopefully it would be accessible to anyone who has a high school education. Obviously, if it's someone who never reads anything in theology, it would probably be a
Mhm,
little bit
mhm.
challenging, but I don't think too challenging. It should be
No, you're right.
very accessible. So it's obviously aimed toward Christian leaders first because that's who usually puts the books in the hands of your ordinary reader. But it's really aimed at anyone. And circling then to the question, like, why did I write the book? What motivated it? And it's just a heart concern for the gospel. And we've had an obsessive concern in the church, and I think a good one to a degree with the question, what is the gospel? As we realize the gospel is really of paramount importance. I've been deeply invested in that conversation. Scott has, many others. And it's not that that question doesn't matter, but I think it's fair to say both Scott and I's urgency has been to help people reframe the gospel and to think about
Hmm.
it in a larger context. And I think that's really where the heavy lifting needs to be done in terms of helping churches articulate the gospel correctly. And I think, like, when we begin with the question, why the gospel, it opens up the space to reframe because it helps us to see that God, first of all, wanted to give us a king. And when we realize that that's what comes first, that it has to be a king first gospel, then we realize that all the things that we want from the gospel, like forgiveness and salvation and adoption to God's family, they only come through his kingship. And so we have to get that kingship piece in place first. And so that's the urgency. I feel like there's a lot of short circuiting of the gospel's deepest intentions. So pushing back and reframing around why did God give the gospel? First of all, because we need a king. And then there are many other reasons too, multifaceted reasons that we could get into. But it's really that urgency that caused me to write this book.